is your midweek edition of InfoHub for Wednesday, August 15. Making the headlines today, government allocates more than $30 billion to security sector. National Youth Parliament begins, Diamond Well active again, and 33 new Peace Corps volunteers sworn in, ready to serve in Guyana. And now for the details. The well at 6th Street Diamond East Bank Demerara, which erupted in June, has again become active. In our first report, Stacey Carmichael tells us that the situation is being closely monitored by the Civil Defense Commission.
CDC Acting Director General Lieutenant Colonel Kester Craig said the re-eruption of the well at Diamond East Bank Demerara occurred around 1:30 a.m. A combination of water, mud, gas and small boulders spewed about 50 feet in the air of the capped pipe landing on nearby houses. 2 weeks ago, engineers from the Guyana Geology and Mines Commission completed initial capping.
The process entails what's known as reverse welling. As part of it, it includes utilizing two sets of pipes going down over 25 feet to trap the gas so it will come to the surface. And it involves using cement to seal around the pipes rather, and the areas that are affected. And the entire area. So that was completed about 2 weeks ago, and was being given 21 days to cure.
From this morning's assessment, it was determined that an apparatus would have to be set up to capture the combination of gas, mud and water and then separate the gas.
I've asked him to give me a recommendation of exactly what it is and the likely cost, because what's indicated that what's happening there is going to be happening continuously until something is done. The Environmental Protection Agency, MASSE and GWI, they conduct tests of the environment to see if there is a high percentage of methane gas in the air, and what the results indicates is that it's safe. The amount of gas in the atmosphere is safe and cannot affect the neighbors around. Apart from that, about a week ago, a sample of the gas was sent overseas for testing to see the quality of it and what can be done in terms of utilization of the gas.
In addition, Lieutenant Colonel Craig said several recommendations were received, including the placement of a gas generator to provide electricity to the community or having a private investor collect the gas for commercial distribution. Following an assessment, a report will be submitted to Minister of State Joseph Harmon for an executive decision to be made. Citizens are reminded to refrain from drilling wells without permission from the requisite agencies to avoid a similar situation which has resulted in significant losses. For InfoHub, Stacey Carmichael.
Government continues to place strong focus on security. This year, $30.7 billion was allocated to the security sector in the national budget, compared to $2.4 billion allocated in 2017. Here is Paul McAdam with the details.
From the 2018 allocation, $1.5 billion was assigned to the expansion and rehabilitation of the prison system, with $1.8 billion for operational costs. Thanks to support from the Chinese government and other international partners, 114 police stations benefited from additional vehicles and equipment. Several stations at Covent John, Lethem, Springlands and Central New Amsterdam are also slated for rehabilitation, and a new facility will be constructed at Parkway Harmony on the west bank of Demerara. An allocation of $350 million for critical gear, including surveillance equipment, body scanners, armor, and more was also made. During a recent National Assembly sitting, Minister of Public Security Kemarat Ramjathan highlighted that these are just a few of the interventions which have led to an overall crime reduction and better apprehension rates.
All the robbery, violence and robbery with firearms used, 2013, by the way, the highest 2014, 823. In 2016, 774, 2017, 673. And we are catching more of these criminals.
The expansion of the community policing groups into more areas, more patrols, and the civilianizing of police groups with broader outreaches, collaboration with religious leaders, and the formation of youth groups are also helping. At the half-year mark, $14 billion has already been spent, almost half of the budgeted amount, according to Minister Ramjathan. Initiatives such as the Citizen Security Project, the Justice Education Program, and the Strategic Management Unit are boosting the force's capability as well as increased training opportunities for ranks.
They are doing robust investigations into every crime. They are using information and intelligence to conduct covert and overt operations. They are doing sting operations. They are doing snap and deliberate roadblocks upon information. And that is why when you see the snap roadblocks, well, some of you feel that it is for other purposes. Random stops and search, raids, big results.
Public and national security remains a prime focus for the government, and the prudent spending of funds allocated will ensure that all citizens, regardless of race, color, creed, or political affiliation, can begin to enjoy the good life. Paul McAdam for InfoHub.
We now report that Guyana is one step closer to phasing out the use of mercury in mining. 2 major projects in this regard will soon be introduced as part of a national action plan. Key stakeholders recently met to advance the Minamata Convention, which will see the reduction and eventual elimination of the use of mercury. Tiffany Rojas has the details.
On Monday, the Ministry of Natural Resources met with regulatory agencies, miners' associations and international partners to discuss the advancement of the Minamata Convention on Mercury. The meeting sought to explore the creation of a working group to advance the National Action Plan's work and address any shortcomings in the document. Minister of Natural Resources, Raphael Trotman.
The important thing was to start the process of speaking with each other. In the meantime, we will go through this plan and see what we can do to strengthen it, as well as to see what our individual responsibilities are. So that when we meet again on the next occasion, we can both say what it is we can do, what we will be doing, and also what we believe could be done, which is not mentioned here.
The ministry partnered with the World Wildlife Fund for Nature WWF and the GGMC to draft a national action plan. This will see a phased reduction of mercury usage in the mining sector to complete elimination by 2027 through the implementation of a phased reduction strategy. Implementing the national action plan will be done through various projects, head of MNR's policy unit Vital Rajkumar noted.
This is one of them. A supply chain approach to eliminating mercury in Guyana's mining sector, the El Dorado Gold Project, this is referred to. The developing partner we're working with is Conservation International, and this is being funded by the Global Environmental Facility. It's pegged at a budget of $5.8 million US. And the objective, as it states, is really to assist us in converting to mercury-free mining by 2025. One of the added benefits of this project, I would say, is that it looks at the entire supply chain, from the prospectors to the miners to the producers. So it's a good project that we're working. We really need to get the private sector on board.
Other projects include the WWF working with the GGMC to provide demonstrations of mercury-free extraction models and sharing of data on a regional level. Guyana signed on to the United Nations Minamata Convention on Mercury in 2013 and ratified the convention in 2014. The National Action Plan captures a number of objectives and strategies as outlined in the Minamata Convention. These include mercury use reduction, increasing the viability of small and medium-scale mining, management of mercury waste, environmental assessment, contaminated sites, public health aspects, and public information awareness and education. For InfoHub, Tiffany Rojas.
Why when I drink a nice guy, I get smoking on? Hey barman, y'all don't sell cigarettes anymore?
The new tobacco law says we can't have cigarettes on public display and we can't advertise that we sell it.
Okay, give my part.
You can't do that in here, buddy. The law states that you can't smoke in an enclosed area. You have to go outside.
I think that's how they do it in foreign. So, the law finally comes again. I'm glad though.
Let's all work together to prevent cigarette smoking related illnesses.
Thanks for staying with us. Secondary school students from across the country today participated in the first sitting of the 4th National Youth Parliament. InfoHub's Crystal Stull was there and filed this report.
Today's proceedings saw students move the 2 motions presented by the government side. There was unanimously agreement on the need to fight augment efforts to combat climate change and for strong contributions to healthy eating policies. The second half of the proceedings focused on motions moved by the opposition side of the House. Those were the enhancement of the education system and amendment to the Representation of the People Act to include youth participation. Minister of Education Nicolette Henry was the chief judge.
All of you did a fantastic job, and I was pleased to see the high quality of your presentations and the confidence demonstrated by all of the speakers. I must say, I noted the passion and conviction in which you took the task, and even sought additional time in one instance to get over your point.
Best Speaker was presented to Arifa Asadali, who was the Shadow Minister of Education, while the Best Debater was presented to the government's Prime Minister, Jordan Kelman. After 6 hours of debates and rebuttals, the government was unanimously declared the winning team by the judges. The second sit-in will be held tomorrow and will see the participation of University of Guyana students. Crystal Stahl for InfoHub.
The passage of the Natural Resource Fund Act will enable the establishment of the Natural Resource Fund to efficiently manage the country's natural resource wealth. This was highlighted in government's Green Paper. Stacey Carmichael has the details.
Once the Natural Resource Fund is established following the passage of the legislation, it will ensure the prudent management of revenues accrued from natural resources for the benefit of current and future generations. This was highlighted in the government's Green Paper on the NRF, which was laid in the National Assembly recently. According to the Green Paper, establishment of the fund will contribute to economic stabilization by ensuring that the volatility on natural resource revenues does not lead to volatile public spending. The administration's plan is to have the fair transfer of natural resource wealth across generations. The natural resource wealth will be used to finance development priorities through the national budget towards the creation of an inclusive green economy. The Green Paper outlines that petroleum revenues as well as excess revenues from mining and forestry will be deposited into the NRF. The NRF will be a US dollar bank account held by the Bank of Guyana from which withdrawals will be made based on a fiscal rule. Minister of Finance Winston Jordan explained to the National Assembly why this is necessary.
We must avoid the resource course at all costs. To do this, we must manage injections to domestic spending. And when we do invest, we must ensure that these investments are catalytic and promote economic diversification so that we realize an economy that is strong and resilient, that can stand on its own long after oil has been depleted. Within the principles of good financial management, these investments will be guided by the National Development Plan, our Green State Development Strategy, and executed via the national budget, as occurs in countries that have been successful in harnessing effectively natural resource revenue for development, such as Norway and Botswana.
Withdrawals from the Natural Resource Fund will be deposited into the Consolidated Fund to form part of the financing streams of the annual budget, along with loans, tax, and non-tax revenues. For InfoHub, Stacey Carmichael.
33 new Peace Corps volunteers were sworn in by U.S. Ambassador to Guyana, His Excellency Perry Holloway. Crystal Stahl tells us that the volunteers were involved in 10 weeks of technical training in the Essequibo Islands on adolescent education and environmental programs.
At the 31st swearing-in ceremony, Minister of Public Affairs Dawn Hastings Williams commended the new volunteers on the successful completion of their training. She explained the new batch will serve in Regions 1, 2, 7, and 9 to continue promoting growth and development in the best interest of the public.
The government recognized the value of volunteerism. The volunteers of the Peace Corps are shining examples for our nation and especially our youth. During your service, your volunteers will be working with teachers and students and in our different communities to teach science effectively, stimulate the love of nature, and empower our youth to be leaders in environmental protection.
Minister of Health, Vola Lawrence, said she's always excited when there is a new batch of Peace Corps volunteers. She promised the government's continued support.
But I am deeply convinced that over an extended period of time, your intervention with the schools, coupled with your interaction with parents and the healthcare workers, will certainly impact significantly and influence positively the choices our youths make.
Peace Corps Acting Country Director Wendy Hirschberger charged the volunteers to remember their oath to provide quality service to the Guyanese public, despite the uncertain situations they may encounter along the way. The new batch of volunteers will provide charitable services for the next 24 months. They will live with residents in the regions that they will serve. Also attending the ceremony was First Lady of Guyana, Sandra Granger, Chief Education Officer of Education Marcel Hudson, and other members of the Diplomatic Corps. Crystal Stahl for InfoHub.
Here are the results of the latest CPL matches, and as usual, we leave you with your bridge and weather reports. Goodbye.
Wave the hand, wave the hand, wave the hand from the Caribbean. Wave the hand, wave the hand, wave the hand from your one number one. For me ready for the competition. You know take intimidation. Ready, woman.